Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. I am so excited for today's topic because this is something that I will say I probably get asked multiple times a year. And that is really what I see. What is the forecasting of what I see happening in businesses? So yes, always the question of like, what is happening with businesses today, but also the question of what do I foresee happening with businesses tomorrow? Like, where do I see the market going? What are things that businesses today need to be aware of, need to have a pulse check on to make sure that they are in the know for where the business trends are going. And so the 101 of today's episode is we're going to be going through 13 different market trends that I specifically see for 2024. Now, listen, I am not someone with a magic what is that called? A magic ball, a magic reading glass of being able to tell you the future. I am not someone who can tell you exactly and just predict the future out of my own desire or just my own thought process. This is rooted in data that I am already seeing right now. We are already seeing patterns of this today. And that is how I know that those patterns are only going to compound and become even larger of an impact going into 2024. So we're going to be going through 13 today that really span across different areas of your business, everything from marketing to brands to system to client interfacing and client delivery and AI. We're going to be talking about the different areas that you need to be paying attention to if you are someone right now who wants to succeed in 2024 with your business and not fall behind. I think part of the reason that a lot of the businesses I work with do succeed is because they are keeping a pulse on the market. I think to be a successful business owner, it's not just any longer about what you want for your business. I see this a lot. People will go into developing their business being like, I want to make this offer. I want to brand this way. I want to market this way. I this, I that. And listen, your business is your baby. I understand if you have goals or visions of what you want your business to look like, but it's also important to remember that your business is dependent on the market. And so while you may want to market or set up your business in a certain way, that is only half of the equation. The other massive half, if you really want to succeed, and the thing that's most important for you to master is the half that is your market and what they want. Really good business professionals not only look at their own innovation and their own ideas, but they also look at the market and what the market is telling them that they want. It's the classic mindset in marketing of market what people want, not what they need. And that is because people buy and people invest and people look into things based off of desires and what they want, not necessarily of the solution we need. This is why, as an example of this, in, for example, the health and fitness industry, we all know that if you move your body and you eat healthy, generally speaking, you're going to be a healthier person. And yet we still see these cleanses of like 7-day cleanse or like keto this or the high carb, the low carb. And that is because everyone is still trying to find a solution to getting that end outcome of being healthy through the way they want to do it, not necessarily what they need, which is just to move your body and eat healthy, right? So this is always going to be a factor in business. And so it's important for you as a business owner to remember that if you want to succeed long-term, yes, I want you to have innovation. I want you to have great ideas. I want you to have things that you feel like you're not seeing the industry do. That is where the great ideas come from, is challenging new ways of navigating your industry. However, you have to pair that with what your industry wants from you, what your market wants. Because again, your market is what determines it's supply and demand, right? What is the demand is the question. And therefore, what do you want to do to supply that demand that exists? So all of that to say, let's get into the 13 different things you need to know as trends going into 2024. So first things first, which I already am seeing, as I said, develop and kind of come to fruition right now, which is brand. Brand is literally everything. Brand has always been an important piece, I would say, in business, regardless of the time that you talk about it. But more and more, because the online space has become even more accessible for people. Basically, anybody with an iPhone right now and an Instagram handle or a TikTok handle can basically become a business. And so while that's incredible, that's exciting, that allows us to have so much opportunity to build multiple different businesses, literally picking up our phone. Think about that. We have the ability to start these brands and businesses just through our cell phones alone. That's amazing. But that also tells you that there's a lot of people in the last couple of years, even just since COVID, there's been a lot of people who started online brands, whether that is a product-based brand, whether it's a service-based brand, UGC content creators using that as their business, generating brand deals, right? There's so many industries that are seeing the opportunity of online marketing, of online sales, and they're coming into the online space. So the big thing that's going to allow you to separate yourself in 2024 from the other people in your market is your ability to effectively brand yourself, whether that is a personal brand, a business brand, it does not matter. And I'm seeing this even with a surge right now, I will say, in luxury branding. Like I'm seeing a lot of people believe that if they are a very luxury brand, we're seeing this in the content space, for example, of the beautiful aesthetic videos of like behind the scenes of a day in my life. And everyone's like, whoa, my house does not look like that, or my day does not look like that, right? Thinking that you have to be aesthetic and pretty and curated in order to win is one thing I'm seeing on the more content creator side. And then on the actual business front, I'm seeing a lot of people starting to play within the luxury space in the belief that if they go luxury, that's going to help them to scale and to grow their business, which is not necessarily true. I want to also put out there that I don't think that you need to be a luxury brand in order to sell high ticket packages, products, services. And I also don't think that just simply making yourself a luxury brand is the way to grow. I'm seeing that as a trend right now. A lot of people leaning into luxury branding. And I actually, if anything, would give advice to kind of go away from that unless you are someone who literally lives and breathes that type of brand in your day-to-day life. If it is a facade to you in this idea, especially as a personal brand, if it is a facade to you that this is not actually how you live your day-to-day life and you're just doing that in the pursuit of generating more income, simply portraying yourself as a luxury brand online is not going to, just doing that alone, help you to scale your business. Now, I will also say, because of this side of, again, like the lack of being approachable, right? We saw this even with the Kardashians have over time, while a couple of years ago, it was like the epitome of everything that everyone wanted, right? It was this idea of, it was like so unattainable. This was several years back, but several years ago, it was so unattainable to be the Kardashians that it became this kind of like separate world you got brought into when you watch them. And what we're seeing is an interesting thing now when it comes to brands is the more authentic, the more individual you can integrate your personality and your raw state into your brand, the actually, honestly, the better off you're going to be in building your brand today. And a classic example of this is actually this perfect blend between the two sides in my example is actually Alex Earl. So if you're not familiar with Alex Earl, she was someone who actually started posting on TikTok. I would say last year, I believe it was last October. I think she was at like about 500,000 or something like that followers. And I believe last time I checked, she was at about like 5 million or something like that. So obviously had some significant growth in the last 12 to 18 months. And all of this to say, I think that what we're seeing with Alex Earl is an example and a principle of what we're going to be seeing within the industry. I think people like a little bit of that aspect of desire to achieve what that brand is portraying. So we like a little bit of that ability to have that untouchable factor, right? Because it drives us, it motivates us. Alex Earl has that. She has this aspect of having this lavish life that most people day to day don't have, right? Or not many people have, not the masses have. But the thing that I think she does exceptionally well is the fact that she also does integrate into her brand, whether strategic on her, standpoint or not, I'm not sure. But in her brand, you'll see that she starts to integrate a lot more of the raw and real state. One of the videos that she often will, as an example, use is her showcasing like her acne journey and being real and raw and no filter about what that looks like, showing her anxiety around starting her podcast, things like that, right? So when she starts to be more vulnerable, it brings the audience in and you'll realize she has a raving fan base as a result of this. And I think what we're going to see going into 2024 is that with everyone trying to portray themselves as a brand, like you can basically create an Instagram handle tomorrow and call yourself a brand. And that's what we're seeing online right now. We're seeing people pop up and call themselves a brand within a matter of 5 days of starting. I think what I predict to see coming up in 2024 is that I will definitely predict that there's going to be much more of a demand for authenticity from brands. I think people are over these ideas of the perfect curated everything. I think while a little sprinkle of that in every brand is okay, and it gives a specific type of experience, I think you need to be conscious as a brand of, especially as a personal brand, what you're looking to create, right? Like when we think about a Chanel or we think about a Burberry and you're going into that store, those brands, their entire essence is the fact that they are considered to be quote unquote unattainable, right? Like they're not meant to be for the masses. And so as a result, they're for a very segmented market. And so my concern is by having so many people try to go the very curated luxury route, what most people don't understand is that with brand strategy, looking at a Burberry or a Chanel, that's what's considered to be there's different brand archetypes. If you guys want to go search this up and dive into it, maybe we even do a separate podcast episode on this because there's so much we can talk about. But when it comes to brands, there's different types of archetypes when it comes to brands. And so the archetype basically is a category that a brand falls into that helps you to better understand what the desires of your audience are and what the motivators of them are. So what do they desire to have? And also what are they fearing? What are they trying to get away from? And so something like a Chanel or a Burberry, those types of brands are considered to be a ruler archetype. So the whole motto of that brand and the way that it's successful is the fact that it is not attainable. It is something that feels so untouchable, so unreachable that people strive to have knockoffs of holding that Chanel on their arm, even if it is a knockoff, because they know the feeling and the essence of what that brand makes them feel. The thing that I want to accentuate here is the fact that if you're going as a luxury brand and if you're thinking I'm going to go super curated, I'm going to go super luxury, and that's going to make me successful, you have to realize that as a brand, that is actually rooted in a certain strategy of becoming unattainable. So when I hear someone say, I want to be a luxury brand, comma, I want to be accessible, I'm like, the two are totally different strategies. And so this is why it's important for people to understand brand strategy when they're looking to develop their brand. So if you want to become top in your industry, top in the marketplace in 2024, I highly recommend really diving into brand strategy, learn how to differentiate yourself as a brand, and actually ask yourself, do I want to be that untouchable? It's not that the Chanels and the Burberrys are going anywhere. It's more a matter of the fact that we need to recognize their place within the market is changing as the landscape of day-to-day brands also change. So one of the biggest questions, I would say by far, that's been a big thing, a big discussion point in my world right now is AI. And that is because I think when AI, and I guess like the start of it being ChatGPT, when it came out, one of two things happened. I had business owners who would say, I'm terrified of ChatGPT. What does this mean for me? What does this mean for my business? All of these fears started to come forward. And listen, those are valid because anytime that something new does come into an industry, we have to adapt. And so I saw two things happen. I saw someone who would either see AI, see ChatGPT, see these auto editing softwares, whatever it might have been, and they become completely freaked out and scared of it. They're like, oh my God, my job's going to become removed. I'm going to become basically non-existent within this market. And there was an instant response of fear that came up. Now, on the flip side, we also saw business owners who would see AI. And the first question was, Kate, how do I integrate this into my business? Like, how do I take the wave of the trend of AI and what's going to be coming out and going to be more and more dominant in business? And how do I integrate this into what I'm doing? So listen, when it comes to AI, it is going to be a dividing force amongst businesses. And it is my prediction and my belief that this is going to actually completely wipe out some businesses, strictly dependent on the fact that they are not willing to adapt and that they are not in the mindset of embracing AI. So, for example, one of the things that I'm seeing that's very heavily integrated into right now, and even within our own business that we're focusing on a lot, is in media. So, for example, say you're somebody who is a video editor. Let's just say right now I'm recording this podcast and I'm going to take this podcast and I want to chop this up into a bunch of clips to put on social media. I no longer have to. It's not that I won't. I have an incredible editor who helps with this podcast, an amazing team behind the scenes who helps with this. So shout out Dear Kels and shout out AHA, because you two are the incredible companies that help us with this. But when it comes to editing, the thing that you want to recognize is that if I was a solopreneur, if I was someone who didn't have the finances, the ability to have a team assist me with this, I could very well have a fully produced podcast to go out. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect because AI is still in development, but I could literally have this podcast edited and chopped up to go out in some way, shape, or form across social media with just using AI. And so as an editor, if you're like, well, I chop it up for you, that no longer is the most valuable asset as an editor, right? Like the most valuable asset now is the ability to say, I'm not going to instead sell the problem of I edit it for you. I am instead going to sell the problem of I help you to get curated clips that are clickbait that allow those to then perform better on social media because they're rooted and clipped with strategy instead of just being simply chopped up, right? So like the thing that you're actually offering as an editor has to change, because the idea of just simply I chop up clips for you is no longer the most valuable asset, because AI can do that. Guys, there's literally a software I will share with you right now. There's a program called video.ai. So VIDYO.ai. And this platform, you can literally, I have done it with my own business. I've taken a file, let's just say, of half an hour to an hour long, and I've put it through this platform. And it literally within 20 minutes chopped up 30 different clips for me to put on social media. So AI just did that for me for free. What potentially could have costed me an editor, let's just even say $30 an hour, $50 an hour to edit for me, right? So now say I am that editor and they're like, oh my gosh, Kate, what does this mean for me? It just means that the problem you're solving needs to be different. And it also should mean that as a business, are you integrating AI into your processes, right? Because as a consumer, if I'm going to delegate something to you, if I'm going to hire you, I want to know how AI is playing a role within your business, right? So if you are editing things for me, is it you doing it? Is it AI doing it? Is it a hybrid of both? Also, right now, I see this having a massive impact as well on course creators. So courses are absolutely on the rise right now. They had a really big market boom, I would say, probably about 3-4 years ago. We saw a really big surge of courses. And then I would say it probably has even doubled today since then. And we're seeing even more and more people going into courses. The problem that I see happening with courses, potentially as a result of AI, is simply the fact that information has literally never been so accessible to us today. Like I can ask ChatGPT basically any question that I have, and it can outline a blueprint. You could literally say, so we're on a podcast right now. I could literally go to ChatGPT and say, build me a podcast launch that starts on this day, ends on this day, and has X amount of pieces of media, and build out a plan for Instagram, including feed posts and stories. And it literally would outline a step-by-step calendar and all the intentions and what you need to do. So when it comes to simply teaching people just information, it is no longer the most valuable asset. In my opinion, if you are an educator, there's two things that I think are going to help you to win in 2024, which is number one, you have to have not just information, you have to have a unique process of how you integrate that information. So I actually see instead of educators, we're going to become integrators. The idea of you teaching me, for example, how to sell in DMs. Well, okay, yes, I could just get a script from ChatGPT. I could just go to AI and say, build me a thing with the following framework kind of thing or the following cues in it. Instead, to become a true asset using AI, if you were trying to sell something around sales, what I'd rather see is I basically help you to know how to use psychology-based sales paired with our framework. And with that, in response to someone's response to you. So I say this and they say this. When they say that to you, I'm going to tell you exactly how to respond and how to know exactly what to do next. AI, not yet, is at that place where it can determine what to say. It doesn't quite have the emotional intelligence yet. Again, this is the big thing I want to say. Yet, it does not quite have the emotional intelligence yet to truly have those adaptive capabilities. It's much more plug and play currently. And the other thing that I think is also going to be another side of this is also the idea as a marketer that your information became your most valuable asset. Like a lot of people would say, never market your best stuff. You have to kind of like always leave a little bit of a gap. Otherwise, people won't invest with you. I actually see that being so different in 2024 because I think the idea of information being the most valuable asset, again, back to courses, that's not why I'm hiring you anymore. If you think the reason I'm going to hire you as a service or a consultant or an agency is just simply based off what you know, that has to be something that I cannot get through just searching that through a ChatGPT. Because if it is, then why am I hiring you? The unique factor is the ability to integrate the information and also be able to help people to understand when they're executing and things don't go well, how to fix it. So let's just say, for an example, with AI, I look at build me a YouTube strategy for my YouTube channel, right? So if this happens and I am applying the ChatGPT strategy and I'm not getting leads, I'm not getting things happening that I want to see happen, the true strategy of where you can fit in and AI can't is how to adapt and how to adjust based off of response, right? So if you, for example, are helping somebody with their YouTube channel, it would be looking at, okay, well, if this happens in your video, here's how we remedy that. Basically, you are someone who's like a doctor for someone's business. You're going to be going in or for your industry. You're going to go in, you're going to look at the symptoms of what's happening, and you're going to provide a prescription for that. AI is already starting, but I would say is not fully integrated or fully complete with yet. So I do still think going into 2024, that's going to be a big opening. All in all, I do think that the idea of simply being the person who can do something, simply being the person who knows information, it's not the most valuable asset. The thing where you can really shine outside of AI is to say, okay, great, AI can teach this, but how do I help people integrate it? So even within our own business, I'll be really honest with you. We are going to be putting some of our most valuable, most information-packed content out into the world. And that is because I recognize that AI is something where someone, if they really had the right prompts and cues to put into something like ChatGPT, might be able to get some answers as it pertains to a launch strategy or understanding buyer types or building their brand archetype, as we spoke about, right? That's something that if you search ChatGPT and you say, tell me what the brand archetypes are, what the motivators are, and what they fear, it will tell you that. So I am not going to sell that any longer as something I can teach you, because I'm not the only one who can teach you that. However, I definitely am someone who, aside from ChatGPT and AI, I am someone, however, who can customize your ruler archetype, let's say, your brand archetype. I am someone who can help you to adjust that archetype and say, how does that archetype fit into email marketing, into your media, into your TikToks, into your team and your culture? That is something that is much more of a robust build out, that often is something that needs to be optimized and refined within a business, and is not something that is as easy to just put in as a prompt. So you're even going to see this in our business. We're going to be having even more of our top content that until now people have hired me for. I'm going to be putting that on the podcast. I'm putting that into new channels and new platforms going into 2024. And that is because I recognize that AI is going to become the go-to information database much more than Google ever was for our generation. And so the next wave is really asking yourself, if information is not my most valuable asset, what am I going to do to fill that gap in the space? And that's a question that I don't think enough people are asking themselves. So that's something I want you to spend some time on as you go into next year, is if I could do these things with AI, what becomes my value proposition basically within your market? Now, third that I see is the aspect of authenticity and actually becoming of service to clients. I think like basically the delivery when it comes to clients and the service and the interfacing with them, because I really think that relationships took a nosedive. So basically what we saw happen within the online marketing world is that everyone, as I said, and their mom built a business pre-COVID or during COVID. Everyone started to build businesses. And so what I found was people were really in it for the quick cash influx. And while they thought they were going to slide under the wire of, oh, okay, like I'm just going to make some sales, no one's going to know. What I've recognized very quickly is the biggest differentiator amongst businesses right now is actually the service that they provide. Because, and what I say to them is the fact that your industry has 1,000,001 people who can do what you do. And so the relationship you have and the results you generate for your clients are actually the things that become your most distinguishing factor. Because if I go, for example, to look on the internet right now, you know for a fact that there's 1,000,001 business coaches that are out there. There's 1,000,001 business consultants. And yet, there still are my go-to clients who are renewing and referring. Like literally a quarter of our business right now is renewals and upsells. So people who are in our world who renew in the existing offer they came into or who go to the next level offer. And the other quarter is referrals, people who say, hey, you should go work with Kate and her team inside of ITI. That is literally half of our business. So if I didn't have that, what that means is that I would have to actually have double the amount of marketing, because I don't have any back-end sales that are happening. It's all forward-facing marketing initiative that I would have to focus on. So the thing that I'm seeing that's actually helping businesses scale right now in their current structure and in today's landscape is really focusing on the relationships that they have with their clients, the depth of those relationships, not just simply just this kind of this very superficial exchange of I pay you, you do this for me. The relationship factor is what's going to help you with longevity with your clients, to also increase renewals and referrals for you. And I also will say it's something that in today's society, when we have the same person who does what you do is all over your client right now. So picture a client in your mind. That client has the same industry as yourself, the same service as yourself being shown to them every single day on social media. So they're constantly kind of getting this commercial basically of other things that could be their results. So your results matter. They also have the factor of the relationship that people have with their clients being marketed. That factor matters. So I really can't emphasize it enough. I think too many people coming into the online space we're too transactional about this idea that if they just simply exchange money for service, that's enough. It no longer is going to cut it. People are much more into the relationship and the brand they're investing into and what the experience is, not just necessarily the product itself. And so Going into next year, as we record this, it is 2023. Going into 2024, the important thing that I want you to focus on is really asking yourself, how can I deepen the relationships with my clients? How can I really facilitate not just being there as the service provider to them, but also being there as a relationship with them? Ask yourself, how many renewals did I get last year? How many referrals have I gotten in the last 12 months, right? Ask yourself those questions. And if those questions are, I didn't get a lot or I didn't really get any, that tells you where you need to start. You need to start looking at the experience of your offer and the relationships that are happening within your client base as it stands today. I do believe that the relationships and the experience of your existing clients is going to greatly impact the experience and the amount of clients that you're going to have moving forward. Because the thing that I can tell you is that when we're buying into brands today, we care about the ethics, we care about the experience. And if you are not focusing on that, you will get left behind in 2024. And this is not to scare you. This is not to make you uncomfortable. This is a matter of giving you the ability to step back right now and say, okay, how am I going to make some changes to make sure that I have those renewals, I have those referrals coming in, and I'm focusing on the relationship. So number 4, also kind of interconnected with this, is the ability for people to smell a good marketer from a mile away. Okay. I have been working with businesses that are anywhere between making their first 5K online all the way up to people who are making $5 million in their business more. The thing that I can tell you is that people are sick and tired of the BS marketing tactics. Kind of back to authenticity when it comes to branding and also when it comes to the client experience. We are over the idea as consumers of being manipulated because of social media and also AI that has allowed information to be so readily accessible to us. What's happening is that your consumer is so wildly educated on what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so rewind, let's just even say 5 years ago, the era of what many might consider today to be bro marketing, feel whatever way you want about it. But when it comes to bro marketing, the reason it was effective back in the day, and it did generate results, guys, like I have seen the inside of businesses that applied those back in the day. And whether they were very heart-centered, permission-based, that's a whole other conversation, but they were effective. They did get results. But why is that? That is because the consumer, the average everyday person that you were looking to sell to, that you were looking to market to, was not someone who was heavy into selling and marketing themselves. The average person now is a UGC creator, right? Like the average person is making content day in, day out. So if you think that your tactics when it comes to your marketing and your sales are going to just completely go over the heads of your consumer, you're wrong. They are wildly educated, they are wildly aware, and they are requiring more of marketers today. And so the online space, the internet, is becoming so wildly informed. You have such knowledgeable consumers and customers that I will tell you the sleazy ads, the sleazy marketing is no longer going to work. I'm already seeing that this last year. It actually started at the end of the previous year, so in 2022, and I saw this going into 2023 explode even more. The people that I saw doing those old tactics and being like, this is my bread and butter, this is how I built it. We're seeing those brands even today who used to use bro marketing. Now they're focusing on totally different tactics and trying to get that to grow because they realize what used to work is no longer working. So this is even back to what we mentioned at the beginning, why it's important to recognize what are you doing as you market and sell, but what does the market want from you when it comes to marketing and selling. And those both factors are extremely important to make sure that you're adapting within each. And so I believe going into 2024, my biggest prediction is that marketers are going to be challenged even more in the way that they market to deliver the same information, the same transformative language, the same type of symptoms, the same selling. You're going to be selling the same things. The way that you sell and the way that you market them is going to be so different than it once was. And that is because the consumer is way more knowledgeable, way more aware, and they demand a different level of relationship with the people that they consume with. And if you think that you're going to bait and switch them when it comes to your marketing tactics, people see right through it. People can see when you're selling them. They can see when you don't care. They can see when you're in it for yourselves. Like, we have our radar up as consumers. And so it's important going into next year that you focus on your ability to effectively market and to know how to market in a way that resonates with your audience and with your industry, right? So look at things that you're doing right now in marketing. Are they generating results for you? Are you seeing the outcomes that you want to see when it comes to the certain ways you've been marketing and selling so far. And if you're not, that might be an indicator to you that things that you're doing, whether it's in DM messaging with people or in video content, we even saw this, for example, with hooks, like literally in the last 6 months on TikTok. The hooks that once did well, that were very clickbait, if I should say, are now actually becoming like, oh yeah, just another classic video trying to sell me, right? Like people have their guard up. And so if you think that you're going to be able to have this rinse and repeat marketing that you do and Kate, what used to work 9 months for me, I'm just going to keep going with that. It will not work any longer. We have to get creative. We have to get innovative with the way we're marketing and realize that the marketing space is changing. And as a result, you and your business and your approaches and principles and tactics you're using have to change along with it. Number 5, this is an unfortunate one, but it is something that I definitely wanted to recognize, is that we are seeing businesses drop like flies right now. And this is going to probably pick up even more going into 2024, unfortunately. When COVID happened, so many different businesses started online, right? Like they started in the online space. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. The word entrepreneur is basically in every single bio that you possibly scroll by these days on social media. And everyone is a content creator. Everyone is a quote unquote business. Everybody is an entrepreneur. And the problem with that being is that I think while it is sexy to have an online business and it is sexy to be an entrepreneur today, it's a phase. And so what I'm already seeing, and it's unfortunate, is that I think the true essence of entrepreneurship is not something that everybody has. And that was something that I've seen and had to kind of learn the hard way with interfacing with people who realize entrepreneurship is not for me. And that was because people who were just in entrepreneurship for money very quickly became eliminated. And we're seeing this today. I'm seeing people day in, day out who are saying, you know what, Kate, I don't want to do this. I realized that I was just doing it for sales. I was just doing it for personal gain. Like I don't have a deep why. I don't have a true mission. I'm not in this for anything other than a sale. And to be honest, I think what's happening is we're seeing people drop because they realized that high of just coming in and making sales, the market has become more saturated. And as we we're talking about, you need to become more creative and you need to have more tenacity and more determination now, more than ever as an entrepreneur, to be able to not only survive, but to excel in today's market. And so what I'm seeing, unfortunately, is the fact that so many business owners who thought they were entrepreneurs are deciding that, you know what, entrepreneurship and being a CEO is actually just not for me. And this is a result of either being too focused on sales and not actually on the fact of, do I enjoy or do I want to build a business? And additionally, I'm also seeing, connected to this, that people are relying way too much on one thing. Like they had this one thing that allowed them to be successful. And as a result, when they started, they were like, oh, if I ride the wave of this one thing, that's going to be the thing that allows me to keep growing. And I think part of the issue is that people are not willing to adapt. So when you're going into business and you start to feel a little bit of the resistance, right? You start to feel a little bit of the hustle that comes in naturally with being an entrepreneur. The thing that I'm seeing is so many people don't have the ability to adapt their business to what they're seeing happen. And as a result, because they don't have that grit, they don't have that tenacity to be able to adapt, they came up with the idea, if I just do this one thing, I'm going to ride that wave till the end of the day. As someone who's, been in business for several years now and helps many different businesses, I can tell you your ability to adapt is your ability to survive in this industry. And so if you can't adapt the way you market, the way you sell, what you offer, etc., you will become obsolete. Like we see this even outside of the online space, right? Think about Blockbuster. Blockbuster was a brand who the experience was going in and picking out your movie and grabbing snacks. And like you'd walk away with your cassette that you'd go home with and you would play your movie. They became obsolete because they never moved into the virtual world, right? Like they did not adapt. And they actually, which is interestingly enough, I'm not sure if you know this, but they were actually approached by Netflix at the time when Netflix was in its infancy to adapt and kind of collaborate and basically blend the two businesses almost together and collaborate to move what was Blockbuster into the online world. And Blockbuster was like, no, I'm putting my stake in the ground. This is what we're doing and we're going to ride the wave. And I believe, I cannot say for sure, but I'm nearly certain that there's only one in-person Blockbuster location in the rest of the states right now. So if you needed an example of the impact of being able to adapt to the market, whether it is with, again, marketing, offer, delivery, whatever it might be, that is your sign. You have to adapt to the market. Otherwise, you will become obsolete and you will get removed from it. And we're seeing it today with businesses dropping. Now, additionally, the other piece I want to note to this is I'm also seeing businesses, which is an interesting trend. I think is going to actually pick up more, is that people who thought they wanted to be the number one, like the CEO in a business, I'm actually seeing more and more realizing that they want to be the number two, the number three in line when it comes to the business structure. People who thought they wanted to be the CEO, they wanted to be the marketer, the salesperson, the head of leadership, the head of management, right? The head of HR, the head of the legal, they basically were the person who was doing all the things. They realized that's not actually what I want to do. That's not actually what's exciting me. And we're seeing that those people are actually collapsing their own business to then take their skill set and their interest into other businesses. And to me, I actually see this as a very positive thing that we're going to see happening more in 2024, because I do agree that actually not everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship in the sense of having the pressure of the marketing and the sales. Some people are not cut out for that. And I think the idea of trying to force everybody into that mold is not something that serves them or the larger market either. And so I think it's incredible that we're going to have more and more entrepreneurs basically pairing and collaborating with each other to work underneath each other's businesses rather than it is having their own business, because it's helping people to have the permission slip they need, that if you're not an entrepreneur, that's okay. You can still be like a number two and a number three and have incredible skill sets and incredible income inside of someone else's business, just in a different structure. And I think also it's also helping to bring more incredible minds together. The idea of so-and-so over here had a business of multiple six figures and they're collapsing that business to take their knowledge of building a multiple 6 or 7 figure business into someone else's 7-figure business is a massive asset. So this is not something that should be considered necessarily always a negative. This can be a very big opportunity for many businesses to bring incredible assets and skilled individuals into your team and into your company. I do think as well, number 6 that I have noted here is I do believe relationships to social media are going to become more and more complex. So number 6 that I'm seeing is definitely that I think the relationship to social media is becoming more and more complex for people, because even today inside of 2023, I am talking to business owners who are relying on referrals to build their entire business. And listen, as I say this, referrals are not a bad way to grow a business. It's not that you can't grow a business on referrals. The point is, if you're only relying on referrals, you have to make sure that you have your business structured in a very safe and sustainable way to allow that to be the core place that you are relying on generating your business from. So what I'm seeing is, a lot of businesses are still resisting the impact of social media and its ability to grow their brands. I see so many people saying, but I've got referrals. I've got my clients, Kate, I don't need to be on social. I haven't focused on social so far. And I can tell you that I do believe going into 2024, the relevancy of your business will become how relevant your marketing is today. And we're seeing this with even large brands, right? We're seeing Dior, which is a large brand, start to hire influencers to help them to reach the larger, more mass market, right? Budgets like Dior has, they're using it to make TikTok content, right? Dior is using TikTok to grow their business. So the thing that I always try to urge people to think about is if you're someone who feels resistant to anything, pull outside yourself, okay? Look at the other larger business landscape, the larger business market, and ask yourself, are there other businesses right now that I respect who are doing this? And for me, it's not about an online creator. It's not about an Instagram person. It's about the fact that large businesses that you respect, that are multi-million, potentially billion-dollar brands, are using TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, email, Facebook, YouTube, podcasts. They are using these channels to grow their businesses, to grow their revenue. And if you needed any sign, that is your sign to lean into it. I think people still are in this kind of belief or bubble, if you will, of if I just put my stake in the ground a little bit longer, I might be able to not have to necessarily do these things for my business. And the reality is, I think if you're not doing it right now, it's only going to become that much more important over the next year. As I sit here, number 7 is that I actually believe podcasts are going to be taking off massively. I believe in podcasts deeply. I'm actually admittedly very disappointed that I didn't start one earlier, because I think there was such an opportunity. I very much admittedly got into my kind of perfectionist mindset, and it kept me from starting this podcast. But I think podcasts are going to take off massively, and especially on video is my prediction going into next year. I think podcasts have always been around. They've been around for years, but mainly in the audio format. And I do think that podcasts, especially on video, are going to become the top the top generated content as it pertains to podcasts moving forward, because I think podcasts are fantastic as a way to be able to have your audience listen and be nurtured by you ongoing, right? Like someone puts you in their headphones every single day and listens to you as they're on the treadmill. Maybe you're on a walk right now. Maybe you're in your car right now and you're listening to them. This is something that has me in your headphones, in your ear, giving you value, right? So I have the ability to then now, with having a podcast, be able to reach people and talk to them for sometimes up to an hour every single week. And so think about the impact that would have on your consumer, right? From a nurturing perspective versus something like a TikTok that's still nurturing you, but it's nurturing you in 30-second or 2-minute increments versus a 1-hour increment, right? So both are effective, just different strategies. And I actually think that they're going to combo together, because if you film your podcast, you have the ability, as we noted earlier, to chop that up and make that into social media content. So if you have the ability to do that, why wouldn't you? People are wanting to make more and more masses of content. And my biggest advice to you is work smarter, not harder, right? It's not the idea of just simply putting in more hours and filming 85 more TikToks this week. It's about saying, how do I sit down for an hour and let that hour on video that I was already doing for my podcast make me 10 or 12 clips that I can then use on social media? And so that, I believe, is going to be the next big push we're going to see with podcasts, especially on video. And I also will say that I do predict, unfortunately, on the same side of the coin, that we're going to see a lot of people make podcasts, but not be consistent with it. And I will tell you why. I think podcasts are something that different from a TikTok algorithm or an Instagram algorithm. There's not this quick dopamine hit, right? You don't release your first podcast. Well, most people don't release their first podcast episode and all of a sudden have this like raving fan base of 5 million people, right? Most podcasts are something that really grow the more that you produce with them and the more that you build a loyal like listening base and a loyal following. And so the thing that I will say is also going to happen with podcasts, which again shows another opportunity for you to create a podcast if you don't have one already, is that people are going to create probably, I would say, 1 season worth of podcasts, realize that it's not a quick hit. It's not that I release this episode and tomorrow I've got 15 leads. Or at least not instantly. And as a result, it's going to become more difficult for them to sustain the energy to keep it consistent and long-term and actually see the benefits that it has to offer. So I do think podcasts will be on the rise, especially when it comes to video. I do think they're going to be seen as a main way of generating masses of social media content. However, I do predict also that a lot of people who see that opportunity, who are excited about that opportunity, are also not going to see the full extent of what it could have done for them, because they're not going to be able to get past that dopamine hit that they were hoping to receive with their first 1 or 2 episodes. I don't think they're going to have the longevity to see it go all the way through. Now, when it comes to number 8, buyers are more hesitant than ever. This is something that I want everyone to be aware of, because I think a lot of people will say, I'm trying to sell X and it's just not selling the way it used to. And that is because people's past experiences with things that they're buying or with brands that they've dealt with are things that are leaving a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to investing again. And so what I'm seeing happening is people will say, well, like I'm selling this masterclass and people are not buying it the way that they wanted to. I was trying to sell this course and it's not selling as hot as it used to. I'm trying to sell potentially one-on-one consulting with people. I'm selling a done for you service and it's not selling the same way. And that is because brands need to, in general, in my opinion, need to be focusing on the experience, right? Like we need to be focusing on the experience we're giving to clients. Again, back to that client experience of the outcome that they're generating with us, but also realizing that brands need to do better when it comes to really showcasing and marketing why we should trust them, right? So I was actually just talking to a client the other day and we were talking about the fact that when you are someone who's selling something right now, your audience has a couple core questions from anyone they're going to buy from. Myself, you, your competitor, they have core questions, which is, who the heck is this person? Okay. So who am I? Can I trust you? So they're looking for information to see, who is this person? What do they do? Second, are you legit? So do I feel like I can trust you? Is there authority representation there? And third, have you generated results before? So are you someone who's actually generated outcomes for people? And fourth, can you do them for someone like me? And so I'm often now in a lot of the coaching that I'm doing and consulting with businesses, I'm talking about the fact that they need to have those 4 areas covered. You need to make sure that I can very clearly understand who you are, what you do. Second, I need to see authority pieces. I need to feel like I can instantly find you on any social media platform and feel confident that I know you and I can trust you. Third, I need to be able to see that I can see results of people you've worked with and results that you've been able to generate for other people other than yourself. And fourth, if that is the case and you've been able to generate results, I need to see variety in those results. And that is a pillar that I will say we've seen social proof day in, day out for many years. But I will say that I have seen this gap of people showcasing social proof with variety. There's a lot of social proof on the market right now that basically is like the same rinse and repeat consumer. And if you have a very niche market, that makes sense. So say, for example, I only help agencies. Well, if all of my social proof is agencies, then yeah, of course, your social proof would just be agency reviews, right? However, if you are a business that has a wide variety in your markets, like for me, I help everything from like lawyers, bookkeepers, agencies, systems and operations people. Like it does not matter the industry. I've helped publishing firms, literary agents, like it doesn't matter. But with all those industries, the thing that I have to focus on, because I have not a very specific clientele, is because in my social proof, I have to accentuate the variety of the different clientele that I work with. Otherwise, what happens is someone finds me on TikTok who's a little bit colder. They haven't been watching me a lot. They find my TikTok. As a result, then they go to my website and then they start to see all the social proof of like coach or agency. If they are not one of those things, in their mind, they will say, yeah, you've generated the results for so-and-so, but you can't do it for me. And so they almost in themselves will disqualify you just simply based off the fact you don't have variety. And so that again is only if you don't have a very niche specific market. And if you are very niche specific, so again, back to my example, if I am just for agencies, then I need to make that very clear in who I am and what I do, because then that becomes the filter of how they assess your results. So again, I think that it is important now, due to how many people have been burned by other people's delivery or other people's businesses, that when they search out for that verification of you, they need to be able to find those things. So again, who are you? What do you do? And can I trust you? Authority. Social proof. Have you generated results for people? And fourth, the results you've generated. Yes, you've done it for them, but can you do it for me? And I need to see that variety. I need to see that selling point really hit home in some of your copy, videos, social proof, etc. Now, number 9, in my opinion, is that the hybrid model of business is going to be the new woman in town. Because when it comes to hybrid business, I think a couple years ago, we saw a lot of very, I would say, siloed business structures. So it was very passive offers or high ticket. And I truly believe going into 2024, we are going to see more than ever a very large mass of hybrid structures. And I'm seeing the people who used to be like the go-to passive person or the go-to high ticket person, those people are now coming to me and to businesses like myself and saying, hey, I know I was passive, but I want to have something high ticket. I know I was high ticket, but I want to go passive. And so I do think it's going to be less about the extremes of being in one bucket or another. And it's going to be more a matter of looking at the holistic approach to your business and saying, how do these benefit me? How does this look as an overall structure for myself? And I also think that the benefit of this going into 2024 is that you're also going to be kind of able to get the best of both worlds when it comes to revenue, right? Like I think courses, as I said, are very much on the rise. And I think passive is great because it allows people that passive revenue that's coming in. But I also can say that I do think people are also wanting that more, again, back to relationships, that intimate touch point. And so the benefit before of kind of having to pick, am I passive or high ticket? I think the beauty now going in 2024 is that having a hybrid approach can actually become one of the most scalable business structures for any type of business, whether you are a coach, a consultant, an agency, a service provider, having both. So whether it is an intensive service versus a retainer service, a digital offer versus a done for you offer, right? Like I think that hybrid is really going to be a sweet spot to not only allow you from a business revenue perspective to win, but also I would say for your clients to be able to have people and customers and audience members you may have to get bought into your world without only having one option to kind of learn from you. And I just think overall, we're going to see these skyrocket. I'm helping people as it stands today to build out these plans. And I just think that they're going to explode over 2024. So I really am just so excited to see all the different hybrid models. And by the way, this also doesn't just pertain to passive and high ticket. This could also be events. I'm seeing people integrate more events into their businesses. I'm seeing people include more digital offers. I'm seeing people have very high ticket, high touch point, like very high intensity one-on-one offers that they're integrating, which before they kind of deemed to be not scalable. And now they're looking at it as more of a scalable approach and integrating it as so. So I'm seeing a lot of variety of product suites, which is fun. You get to be able to integrate all these different structures, I think the key thing is, what are you loving about your business right now? What is the structure you currently have? And is it working for you? And if it's not, how you want to adjust that moving forward. And one of the things you might want to look at is not having yourself be so siloed, right? Trying to say, how do I pull a little bit of passive and maybe have that be, let's just say, a quarter of my business, but 75% of my business is high ticket, or flipped, having it 75% passive and then 25% high touch point. I want to open up the conversation for people to realize that you don't necessarily have to have it be all one or the other. Number 10, I already saw happening in 2023, and I think is going to, honestly, it's a domino effect from COVID. There is definitely, without a doubt, a surge of audience members, customers, clients of mine, and different industries that I have done market research in as well, as it pertains to this, that are looking for more in-person touch points. I think with the spark of COVID, everyone was literally at their laptop in their office working on their business. And while that's beautiful, laptop lifestyle is amazing, I do think that entrepreneurship has become so lonely because the digital world has gone so laptop oriented, right? Like even when you think about the corporate space, a lot of corporate spaces, interestingly enough, were very much embracing post-COVID work from home, flexibility of working from your laptop. And we're starting to see now more and more businesses requiring their teams to come into the in-person facility for their approach to the in-person component that they feel is necessary to maintain the company's structure and culture. So the same thing I think is actually going to be seen in the online space and with the online business market is that I think more and more people are going to be asking for in-person connection. So whether that is with a team doing in-person types of retreats and things, hosting in-person events, I definitely think is going to be something that people crave and they're going to want more of. Even in 2023, like in 2022, the year before that, I offered VIP days, which were basically an in-person intensive experience with myself to plan out business strategy. And I can tell you in 2022, I had a couple, but it wasn't really like the bread and butter by any means. I very much would say that I had a very big surge of our group and one-to-many offerings of like our Foundations Mastermind, our Accelerator Mastermind. And just going into 2023, I saw my private mentorship absolutely skyrocket. And I saw my VIP intensives, which are one-day experiences, absolutely skyrocket. And we literally filled a waitlist for our event that is going to be coming up going into 2024. We saw that waitlist fill up basically overnight. And so what it all told me, and also with our New York dinner, having women fly in for a dinner, it's further proof that people are craving connection. People are craving the intimacy in business relationships. And so I do think COVID has made people so isolated that they're craving more of that connection and they want to be around other like-minded people. And so it might be something you want to consider going into 2024 is, how do I want to integrate that within my product suite, within my business structure? Is there anything that you do want to connect in your business to allow that to be a little bit more of a staple? Do you have anything that allows you a little bit more connection or intimacy with your clients? And if you don't, maybe that's something you want to consider going into 2024. Because I can tell you, not only in my business, but in all industries, people are craving connection. Community is just something we're seeing with all different types of offers and structures that is very much on the rise right now. So the other thing that I also mentioned very briefly, but I wanted to kind of circle back to as well, is that people are leaving corporate also to start inside of other businesses. Like I am seeing time and time again that people are focused so much on culture right now. And I don't think enough businesses are acknowledging the impact that culture has on the ability to not only acquire a team, but also to maintain that team. The idea that simply just the work or the paycheck is going to be the thing that people decide on any longer is no longer the case, right? Like we are more than ever desiring to be part of teams that activate us in a culture way. So in the sense of the communication, the leadership, the interfacing with each other, but we also desire, in my opinion, lifestyle almost equally now to the compensation that we have. We've always wanted, I would say, to have work-life balance in corporate structures. But I think more and more as the generations go deeper into corporate, we're seeing more and more that there is more of a demand now for balance. There's more of a demand and a focus on mental health. There's a demand for what the old baby boomer approach of the clock in, clock out has done to us. And that the millennial and Gen Z generations are demanding different. And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of businesses that are larger, for example, SaaS companies and things of that nature, are not following necessarily suit with the cultural shifts that we're looking to see. And what's happening is the people from those larger corporations are saying, hey, again, kind of what we said earlier, not everyone's cut out for entrepreneurship. They want that laptop lifestyle. They want the ability to work from their phone or from their laptop, but they're not quite sold on themselves starting a business. And so what I'm seeing is people from corporate are shifting into moving into the online space to work for other CEOs because of the culture and because of the lifestyle. And so I think what this is going to tell us is that lifestyle for maintaining a good culture and a good team is going to become of the utmost importance. And I think the impact that your business, your company has on your team, if you're saying, I want to have these people with me for a long time and I want them to stay with me and to grow within my business, that's amazing. But the key thing that you're going to want to focus on in order to make that happen is that you actually have a culture that makes them want to stay. And you want to ask yourself, do I have that? Is that something that I think I've got good communication, I've got good leadership, I've got good work-life balance, I've got good understanding of what they desire, not just what I want to give as a company. And I think those are important conversations we need to have today, because the structure of corporate and what's happening in larger settings and larger companies that have thousands of employees, those shifts and those trends are something that are going to be a really big representation if you are someone wanting to build a large business as an entrepreneur as well, and a big team, as I do. So these are things that I'm always tuning into. So I want to share them with you. Also, number 12, everyone and their mom wants to start an online business right now. Okay. As we're saying, like the idea back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking about a couple of years ago. So back in the day, the idea was that if you were the first to something, that you were considered to have won. So even when TikTok came out, right? When TikTok first popped up on the market, TikTok was something that people believed because they were first. So like they got on the wave when it had really good organic reach. Like they thought because of that, that when they got onto the TikTok wave early, that they would win. What we're actually seeing now is that first is irrelevant, right? So first is good. You got maybe an advantage initially. But what we're seeing is actually the people who are first have a chip on their shoulder in anything. I was the first to YouTube. I was the first to TikTok. I was the first to this. And so what we're finding is they're getting stuck in their ways, and they're basically leaning on the fact that because they were first, that's going to be the wave that they need to ride to the end of the day to grow their business. And so people are getting too comfortable is what I'm seeing. They're first to a certain offer type, first to a certain platform, first to doing something in their business. They believe they were first. They got to it early. And I can't say this enough. You gotta stay uncomfortable. You have to realize that what you did to get here could become entirely irrelevant tomorrow. And one of the examples in my business of kind of how I saw this, or like one of the ways that this lesson integrated for me, was in my business when I first started years ago. One of the ways that I grew my business actually was by doing lives. So at that time, Instagram lives were like a very big thing. You can still do them today, but they're not nearly as, I wouldn't say, leverageable as they once were. So I used to do lives all the time. And so when doing lives, what I would do is I would take that live and I would put that into an IGTV and I'd put that on my feed. Well, that, no word of a lie, used to bring in like applications day after day. Like I would go on every day because of how much reach it would give me, how many applications it would give me, and what it would generate for me in my business. And I very quickly realized that over time it was starting to dip and dip. And over time, eventually Instagram just totally removed basically IGTVs, and they weren't really like a feature that was focused on anymore. It was kind of like a side note, and they switched to Reels. So that was my sign. We got to pivot, because this is something that I used to rely on that got me a lot of leads and sales, but it's not something I can have as a crutch any longer because it's not going to generate anything for me. And so I think it's important for, again, back to adaptability, for us to recognize if you want to win long-term, you have to be adaptable in your approaches, and what worked for you at one point may not work for you anymore. And with that as well, that just being the first to something doesn't mean you can ride that wave, and you instead now have to become the best. So someone will say, I actually had someone literally today say to me, well, Kate, I never used to have to do that. Like when I a couple years ago started, those videos did well, that way of marketing did well, that approach did well, and I shouldn't have to do that anymore. And I'm like, well, that's the market today. That's what used to work then. That worked because you thought you were first. That's not what's best now. So as a result, if you don't do what's best now, you will become irrelevant. So the ego has to get checked at the door, because otherwise what happens is that you will become so stuck in the way that you did it when you were first that you will no longer be the best. And if you are not the best in the way that you're doing something, you will become irrelevant in 2024. It is all about adaptability, is the overarching theme that I'm sure you are getting from today's episode. So last but not least, the delivery of the product and what you're actually selling, in my opinion, can be equally, if not as important as the brand you have itself. And I want to give you an example of this. So you'll see potentially on TikTok, I am on the side of TikTok that is makeup TikTok. If you guys know me, you know that I love makeup. I have since I was like a little girl. And you'll see on TikTok that you'll see these videos more and more popping up of dupes. So dupes basically being there's an expensive product and there's a cheaper product, often sometimes like 70% off that price. And they're two totally different brands, but people will basically say, let's just say there's a Charlotte Tilbury. So this is not specific, by the way. These are just examples. Say there's a Charlotte Tilbury or there's a Lululemon, right? There's a Charlotte Tilbury makeup, but Elf, which is a cheaper brand, has a product that basically mimics the same thing. Or you've got Lululemon leggings. There's an Amazon dupe that's $28 that's going to be for sale. What we are seeing is that dupe culture is a byproduct of the consumer being more focused on the product than they are on the brand. Now, what does this mean for you? This means that we are seeing going into 2024 that brand alone is not becoming the only factor for a purchase. So for example, in a day and age where wearing the Lululemon was the only thing that you wanted, we are seeing now that people will say, I'll ditch the Lululemon leggings and the logo if it means that I can get the exact same legging basically for X amount, right? So for potentially $100 off of what they usually sell for. So this is telling us that consumers are much more focused on a product or a services experience than they are on just the brand itself. They are willing to leave the brand that they once cared about if they feel that the product or service is better elsewhere, especially if it's cheaper elsewhere. So what this means for you is that while brand is important and that's going to help to create community and it's going to help to always help with longevity of your business, you cannot just only say once they get bought into my brand, they're here forever, because your product and your service being able to actually effectively help your audience is a key factor in it having longevity and you not losing customers. So if you think that just being a brand is going to be enough in 2024, it won't. You have to be looking at, if I am the Lululemon and I want to position myself as a Lululemon, how am I ensuring that why does someone want to buy our Lululemon leggings when we have the dupes, right? So which one are you? Are you the Lululemon? Are you the dupes? And if that's the case, how are you building brand connection? And also, how are you focused on what your audience wants? See, what we're realizing with things, for example, like a Lululemon, is that people want to buy Lululemon, but they can't do it for the price tag. And so then basically the Lululemon type businesses have this decision, which is to either create a lower budget product, which is not always the right move, by the way, and that you can create a lower budget product, or recognize that you're becoming, again, back to the Chanels and the Burberry, you're becoming more of a segmented market, which basically means that as consumers in today's world, with the financial, situation being what it is for most of the world right now, we're going to have more and more of a push to have more accessible products. And so then as a brand, you have to decide, well, what does that mean for me? So overall, I want to accentuate that before, years ago, for someone to go and buy a knockoff of a Lululemon was something that most people didn't feel comfortable to share or comfortable to do, because they were so, the identity or the highlight of the purchase was the fact they were Lululemon. And now more and more, we're seeing the market shift from I care about the brand to I care about the product. The product is good. I could care less about what logo's on it. And that is a big thing for brands to be aware of, because if you are not aware of that trend and what that means for your business, again, it could leave your brand and your business being the Lululemon that gets left behind, and instead having your Amazon equivalent competitor being the one who gets the leggings sale. So it's just things we want to be aware of as businesses. So all of this to say, these are the 13 things that I'm seeing happening and coming into even more going into 2024. I love to do these episodes and these styles of content going into Instagram, TikTok, podcast, and diving into them. These are common questions I get a lot from our clients. And as I share these with you, the thing that I want to note is that this is just an insight. This does not mean that I am saying go completely restructure your entire business and go make a whole new business plan for 2024. That's not what I'm saying at all. I want you to be aware of this. the thing that I coach all of our clients on is that it's not a matter of whether you have to do something about it, but the question is, do you even have an awareness? Do you have that aha happening of these different areas? Are you aware of AI? Are you aware of the impact of what's happening with brands today? Are you aware of the shift that's happening with consumers? Are you aware of the ways that different types of selling are no longer working? If you're not always having a pulse on the industry, back to our overall theme of adapting, you will get left behind as a business. And so I am here hoping that today was helpful for you to realize, hey, you know what? I actually haven't been focused on AI enough, or I actually haven't been focused on how what used to work isn't working anymore. Maybe I should go back and look at, is that generating results it used to? Those are the conversations you should be having in your business every single quarter, because this is also, by the way, not just once a year. These things happen quickly. I am seeing some of these trends in business that I've identified. Some of these trends literally happen within a 6-month window. So this is not something also that you have to wait once a year to go back to. You can identify these as they're happening and keep your pulse on them as they're happening within your industry or within your market. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys today. I really just want to make sure to cover this so you have all the information that you need going into 2024 to absolutely crush it. And with all that being said, you guys, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. As always, stay ambitious.